Hello everyone, welcome back to module 2 of CA 140 course. So, um, welcome, and today we will start with the fundamentals of HTML. So let's get started. We are going to start with the basic of HTML document structure, which is the foundation of every web page you see on the internet. So first, what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's basically the language that tells the browser how to structure and display content on a web page. Without HTML, there would be no headings, no paragraphs, no images, just raw and organized text. So now in HTML, we use something called elements. You can think of an element as one complete building block on a web page. It can be a paragraph or even a button in an element. Each element is made up of tags. Tags are instructions written inside angle brackets like paragraph or heading. um, I'm sorry, header. They tell the browser what kind of element is it dealing with. So every element normally has an opening tag. This is where the element begins, and a closing tag. This indicates the end. For example, if you look into the paragraph tag, paragraph starts a paragraph, and the closing tag with the slash on it ends it. So notice the slash in the closing tag. So it's what tells the browser that the element is finished. Finally, we have something called void elements. These are special because they don't need a closing tag. For example, an image tag just exists on its own. There's nothing to wrap inside it. These are the core to an HTML structure. They all work together to create the page structure. All right, now let's make things clearer with an example. Suppose we have some text like the words good day. We want to display it as a paragraph on a web page. In HTML, we wrap this text inside what we call a paragraph tag. The paragraph tag starts with an opening tag that's P and ends with an closing tag that's slash p. So it looks like this, good day, and the closing tag. Here's the key idea. The opening tag tells the browser, hey, starts the paragraph here. And the closing tag says, okay, now we are done with our paragraph and it's the end. When both these tags along with the text inside come together, we call it an element. So in this case, the entire structure P, good day, closing P is one element. Think of it as a container. Tags are like the edges of the container, and the text is what we are putting inside. Now that we understand elements and tags, let's look at some HTML components that are special and that from the basic structure of every web page. Let's start from the very top of every element page, every HTML page, the doc type HTML declaration. This line is not an element. Think of it as a label for your web page. It tells the browser this page is written in HTML, where we are telling the browser use the latest standard, which is HTML5 before HTML5. We had older versions like HTML4 and XHTML, and each had its own rule. By using the doc type HTML, we are making sure the browser knows we want the modern rules, cleaner code, more features, and more compatibility issues. Without it, the browser might guess the display things in different weird ways called quarks mode, and we definitely don't want that. So next we have HTML element. This is like the outer wrapper for the entire page content. Everything except doc type goes inside this HTML tag. Inside the HTML element, we have a section called head. The head is interesting because it doesn't show up directly on the web page itself. Instead, it contains things. For example, the page title you see on the browser tab, metadata, links to style sheets, scripts, basically instruction and data about the page. Finally, there is the meta element. Meta elements carry the metadata, or for example, information about the page such as its character encoding, description for search engines, and other properties like void elements. These don't need a closing tag, they just exist on their own. So let's talk about three important parts: title, body, and attributes. First, the title. This is the name of your web page where you put inside the title element. Shows up in the browser's title bar or the tab name at the top. It's also what engines read, and it's the name that appears when someone bookmarks your page. So, choosing a clear and meaningful title is very important. And next, we have the body element. Think of the body as the main content area of the web page. Everything you want the user to see, text, images, links, button, goes inside the body tag. Without the body, your page would be empty for the users. So, finally, let's talk about the attributes. Attributes give extra information about an element. For example, it's an image tag, and in the image tag we often add attributes like source for the image, or src, or alt for alternative text. Attributes always go inside an opening tag and look like this image source photo dot jeb, or alt equal to nice photo, it's a nice photo. So they help the browser understand more details about the element. So now we have a broad overview. Let's put everything together and look at a minimal web page. At the very top, we have the doc type declared. This line simply tells the browser that this page is using HTML standards, especially the HTML5. Without it, some browsers might display the page incorrectly, so it's always the first thing that we write. And next, we have the HTML opening tag. This is where the actual HTML document begins. Inside this opening tag, we also see something new, that's called lang equal to en. This is actually an attribute. It gives extra information about the element. In this case, this is telling the browser that the language of the document is English. This can help search engines and screen readers understand the page better. And finally, at the bottom, we have the HTML closing tag. This simply marks the end of the HTML document. Everything we want on the web page will be written between the opening HTML and closing HTML tags. Now, more details. Notice that the head section, everything inside the head contains meta information about the page. So, what meta information mean? It's information about the page itself, like the title or encoding, but this information is not displayed on the actual web page. So inside head, we see meta charset equal to UTF-8. This might look a bit technical, but all it is doing is telling the browser this page will use the UTF-8 character set. UTF-8 allows the page to show characters from different languages. So whether it's English, Spanish, or even special symbols, the browser knows how to handle them. The body and the Title tag, we have already talked about in the previous slide. Title is for the name of the web page, and body is for all the content in the web page. Now let's see how the code we wrote actually looks when we run it in a browser. On the left side, we have our input, the HTML code. This includes everything we have learned so far, the doc type, declaration, the HTML tags, the head and body section, etc. Um, so and finally, the body section with the text "Hello World." On the right side, we have the output. This is what the browser shows the user. So here you see two things. The text, my first web page, appears on the browser tab because we put it inside the title tag, and the text "Hello World" appears on the main page because it was inside the body tag. So everything we put in the head is about the page but not shown directly, while everything in the body is what users actually sees. Now let's talk about a very powerful feature in Chrome that is called DevTools. Chrome DevTools is like a toolkit that comes built right into the Chrome browser. So what does it do? It allows us to look under the hood of any web page. For example, we can inspect the HTML and CSS, see how elements are structured, and even test out changes live in the browser without touching our actual code file. Most importantly, DevTool is used for tracking elements on a web page and for debugging, which means finding and fixing problems in our code. In the image, you can see how we can open DevTools and view our HTML structure on the left side while the web page displays on the right side. It's like having extra vision for your web page. More on this in the latter part of this course. So, before we wrap up, let's talk about two very important concepts. First, the deprecated features and the HTML validator. First, the deprecated features. In HTML, sometimes certain tags or attributes get marked as deprecated. This means they still work, but they are officially discouraged because newer or safer alternative exist. For example, old tags like font were used for styling text, but now we use CSS for that. So deprecated features may disappear in future versions, so it's better to avoid them in the newer projects. And next, we have the HTML validator. You can think of this as a grammar checker, but for HTML code. So this checks whether your HTML follows the correct standards. If there are missing tags, improper nesting, or deprecated features, it highlights them from you. So why is this important? Well, proper HTML structure ensures that your web page looks and works the same across different browsers and devices. So using a validator helps keep your code clean, consistent, and future proof. Thank you. Um, thank you, everyone. This brings us to the end of chapter 2.1. In this chapter, we actually learned the basic of HTML structure, starting from the doc type declaration, tags, body, title, and even the meta tag. We also saw how a simple web page goes from input code to actual output in the browser. We also learned a little bit about the Chrome Dev tool to inspect, debug web pages, and we discussed deprecated features as well as the importance of using an HTML validator to keep our code clean and standard compliant. So in the next chapter, we will build on foundation and start exploring more features of HTML that makes our web page more richer. Thanks.